The key to learning English grammar and English syntax, the study of English sentences, is to remember that correct grammar does not always mean a correct meaning. You can have a sentence with perfect grammar that is meaningless. Let's see if I can remember the classic example here. No, it doesn't have it. Okay, hang on. There we go. Colorless green ideas sleep furiously. Adjective, adjective, noun, verb, adverb. The grammar is perfect. The sentence is nonsense. So when we think about English syntax, we're paying attention to the grammar. There will be some cases where the meaning of the sentence and the grammar of the sentence will not be the same. And in that case, we're looking at the grammar. So another way to say this is, in the past, maybe you are used to understanding English by translating it into Chinese. But if the sentence is meaningless, how do you translate that? You can't. So you do have to pay attention to what is going on in the grammar of the sentence. So there are some ways to help you do this. One way is you can think about what are the key components of each sentence. Every English sentence looks like this. There will be one subject. There will be one main verb. Depending on the verb, there may or may not be an object, but it's not your choice. It depends on the verb. And then finally, all of the other stuff will appear at the end of the sentence. Sometimes you want to move the other stuff to a different place in the sentence, and therefore it might look like this. But the additional comma in the middle tells you that you have moved something. So no matter how long or complicated the sentence, you will always be able to find the subject, the verb, and if needed, the object. That's what makes it a complete sentence. For example, this sentence. Andrew found a delicious three-course meal for an excellent price just around the corner from the university, but a nearby sextet of unfed cats remained wholly unimpressed. That's a long and complicated sentence, right? But you will always be able to find the subject and the verb, and if needed, the object. As you can see from the diagram. Andrew, subject. Found, verb. Meal, object. This is actually two sentences connected together with a but. So the second sentence is subject is sextet, verb is remained. And you'll notice this is a slanted line, right? This is a straight line. This is not a straight line. So unimpressed is not the object. The second sentence has no object. And so all of the other stuff that we've added onto these things. Found. Where did he find it? Around the corner. And it's just around the corner. The corner from what? From the university. All of these are added onto the main sentence. What kind of meal? A delicious three-course meal, and then additional information about the excellent price. So you can see that in every English sentence, there will be a basic structure, and then you will have stuff that is added onto that basic structure. This sentence is long, but it's not actually complicated. Everything is in the correct order. Nothing has been moved. You don't have to rearrange it to find the subject and the verb. But when you come across even more complicated sentences, try to find what is the verb, what is the subject, and that will help you to rearrange things so that they make more sense. Okay, so let's move on to the course website. The syllabus, we just looked at that. Announcements. I will try to tell you everything you need to know in class, but if something happens and I need to tell you immediately, I will post here and you will receive an email from Moodle. So remember to check your email once in a while. Class recordings. You will notice I am currently recording. Every lecture will be recorded and then uploaded to this YouTube playlist. And the reason I do that is because of the next one. You can search the video. You open the transcript. The transcript is just the recording of all of the words, and you can search the transcript and you click on the part you want to go to and it will jump in the video to where you want to watch. That's why I'm posting it on YouTube. We looked at last semester final exam. I'll show you the next thing a bit later. And then the last one here is the reference textbook. If we need to consult a textbook, this will be the textbook. But usually it'll just be me talking from my own expertise. Grades. This is just where I enter the grades. You can't see this. The midterms are 30%. The final is 30%. 20% is attendance. And the last 20% is this, course reflections for weeks 17. Yeah, for week 17. So that's worth 20%. Okay, and then all of this stuff is extra materials if you want more practice, if you want to look at a different textbook, if you just want to learn more about grammar. Okay, so this week is the introduction week. I'll give you the handout later. Yeah, again, if you are new this semester, the handout is 100% questions. They are all practice questions. And most of those questions will be error correction. There will be a mistake. You have to find the mistake and you have to fix the mistake. It's easier when you know what kind of mistake you're looking for. And so we're using that as practice to help you prepare for the exams. That shouldn't be here. I'll delete that later. Okay. And then near the bottom, there's an extra credit option. So this is different from last semester. Last semester, if you needed extra credit, you can write some reflections. But this semester, the reflections are part of your grade. So if you need even more extra credit, you have to do this, or you can join the, that shouldn't be here. Why is there so much other stuff here? You can join the short film contest. Yes, we're having another short film contest. The details are a little bit different from last semester. So make sure to pay attention to the details when the department announces them. And if you do that and you follow all the rules, you will get 10 points. Okay, do you have questions about the course design and what you'll be doing? Great, okay, so this week we're going to talk in more detail about syntax. The study of sentences. This is not the textbook you will be using next semester. This is just my favorite textbook. My favorite language textbook, linguistics textbook. So the thing about syntax is when we think of a word, right? We often think, oh, it's a noun, oh, it's a verb. But really, what part of speech a word is depends on where you put it in the sentence. For example, oh wow, this textbook really got some unique words here. Um, okay, yeah, okay. So, for example, the word remain, right? The second to last one in the verb list, remain, is sometimes used as a noun. For example, if you are British and you voted not to leave the EU, then you voted remain as a noun. And you can tell it's a noun because it is the object of the verb vote. You voted remain. Verb, noun, um, main verb, object. So it's actually syntax that determines part of speech. But what is determined by the part of speech is what you can add onto it. We know already some of these rules, right? You can only add a or the to a noun. You can only add very or to an adjective. But again, you should take this idea and turn it around. When you add the word the, it becomes a noun. I went to sleep, like some of you are doing now. The sleep was good. Because I added the word the sleep was good, the word sleep turns into a noun. And so using these principles, you can actually figure out the grammar of nonsense. So this poem is taken from Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass, which is part of the Alice in Wonderland stories. And it's a nonsense poem. It doesn't mean anything. And yet, it does feel like it means something. 'Twas brillig. 'Twas means it was. So the word brillig is an adjective. It was hot, it was cold, it was brillig. And the slithy toves, right? After the, it has to, there must be a noun. So toves is a noun. And the only kind of word you can put between a noun and the determiner is an adjective. So slithy must be an adjective. And you can do this for the whole poem. Did gyre and gimble in the wabi? Did is a verb, right? So gyre and gimble are both verbs. The wabi, so wabi must be a noun. All mimsy were the borogoves. Mimsy must be an adjective. The borogoves, borogoves is a noun. And the momi raths out grabby. So again, the, right? Raths is probably a noun. Momi is an adjective. Out grabby is probably a verb, right? And the is the subject and out grabby would be the verb. This is the kind of grammar sense I hope you will pick up um, during this course. So when we're focusing on the grammar, not the meaning, there are a few ways that we can test the structure of a sentence. And to understand this, we have to look at what exactly is the structure of a sentence. Linguistics is a descriptive science, which means it goes out, it looks at examples, and it thinks, what are the rules and principles behind these examples? So it's not a science that tells you what you should do. It's a science that tells you what people are already doing. And apparently in English, people are talking like this. So in every sentence, we had that basic structure, right? The core of the basic structure is the head. If it influences something else, that something else is the complement. And if we need to modify it in some way, the modification is the specifier. So let's look at some examples. It already, okay, here. No. They don't give you a complete, oh, there we go, okay. Uh, yeah, so a map. It is a map. The map is the head. A tells you that it is not any specific map. It is a random map. So it's a specifier that modifies the head. Never overeat. Overeat is the head. It's the core part of this phrase. The word never modifies overeat, so it is the specifier. Um, so we can look at slightly more detailed examples. Eat candy. Candy is the head of its own phrase, and there it doesn't affect anything else, so there's no complement, and you cannot count candy. There's no modification, so there's no specifier. So it just goes all the way to the NP level, right? This level here. There's nothing else added to it. But the word candy itself is affected by the word eat. So in the second level, uh, eat modifies candy. That's what you do to it. So candy then becomes the complement. Eat is the new head because now you're talking about an action, a verb phrase, VP. Look at this one. Fond of candy. Candy is not modified. It doesn't do anything. But when you go to the next level, it is now part of a prepositional phrase of candy. And so candy then becomes the complement to of, which is the head. But then if you're using this entire phrase to describe somebody, right? I am fond of candy. Then the entire thing is an adjective phrase. The head is the adjective. And this prepositional phrase then becomes the new complement. The structure is, you can think about it as like it's building on top, layer by layer. You can think about it uh, as you go forward, you are always affecting or influencing something else. There are different ways to think about this, but you can tell that when you say candy, you're talking about a noun. When you say of candy, you're talking about a relationship. It's a preposition. And when you say fond of candy, you're describing something. The meaning changes. And so the structure of the sentence can show you why the meaning changes. Or maps of Canada. Canada is one thing, of Canada is another thing, and maps of Canada is a third thing. And the structure keeps building to show you that the meaning is changing. Yeah, we don't have to talk about that. So how does that happen? When you add a new layer on top of the previous layer, it's called a merge operation. When you put one part into another part, it's a merge. So this is a noun, the house, but when you add in, it becomes a prepositional phrase. You're describing a location. You have merged the noun part into the preposition part. Finally, we get to a complete sentence. A sentence is not just about nouns, verbs, and other things. It's also about time. In English, every verb has a time. And so linguists add a layer in the middle to express whether it is in the past or it is not in the past. Well, what about the future, right? Well, you'll remember the future has two words, right? Will plus the verb. So it's done a little differently. If we only focus on the single verb, is this verb in the past tense or is it not in the past tense? So this part, the T part, this is called the predicate. It's the part of the sentence that begins with the verb when you have a specific time. Everything before this is the subject. So this sentence, as you can see, is the hikers found the shortcut in the past. And you'll see that we're still using the same sentence structures. We're still using the same diagram. We're just adding layers on top. And in this understanding, the subject is the specifier of the predicate. It modifies the predicate. Who found the shortcut? The hikers found the shortcut. It modifies the meaning of the main sentence. Right, so this is what future will look like. We don't have to worry too much about this. So, how can you tell what a sentence structure looks like without drawing this diagram? Or another way to say this is, how can you make sure that you draw this diagram correctly so that it tells you the actual structure of a sentence? There are two tests. The first is the substitution test. Can you replace one phrase with a single word? For example, if you can replace the children with they, then you know that the children is on the level of a noun phrase. If you can replace stop at the corner with do so, then you know that stop at the corner is at the level of a verb phrase. If you can replace at the corner with the word here, then you know that it's a prepositional phrase. So this is why you can't just replace random words in a sentence, because the sentence actually follows a kind of structure. You can only replace words at certain parts of the structure. The second test is the movement test. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Can you move a certain part of the sentence to another place in the sentence? If you can, then this part is, again, some kind of phrase. So you can move at the corner to the front because at the corner is a complete prepositional phrase. So you can just cut this out and you can move it elsewhere in the sentence and the structure will remain the same. The sentence structure does not change. It's simply the location of the words that has changed. The coordination test, I don't think it's really a test. It's telling you where can you add more information. And the basic idea is if you add more information to the same sentence, it has to be added on the same level as another part of the sentence. Like when you add it there, the two parts of the sentence have to be on the same level. So the children will, a verb phrase, stop at the corner, and a second verb phrase, look both ways. They are both verb phrases, so you can put these two parts of the sentence together. Yeah, we can skip this. Okay, so those were simple sentences. But what if you want a more complicated sentence? What if you want to ask a question? What if you want to add negation? Let's find the okay, yes or no questions. If the original sentence is those guys should leave, we know that to turn this into a yes or no question, you have to move the word should to the front, right? Should those guys leave? So linguists have created another layer on top to give you a place to move the should. And after you move, it looks like this. You'll notice that the original location of the word should is not blank. There is a T. The T stands for trace, uh, the remainder of the word. The reason the T is there is to tell you you can't add something else there. The original word is still there. You just moved it. And this is why you can't say, should those guys should leave. There's only one should in this sentence. You have only moved it to a different place. It's not empty. You can't use that space. So those are yes or no questions. But and this also helps explain why this is not a question. Because you have not moved the word should. It doesn't fit the structure of a sentence. So whether those guys should leave is actually only the second half of a sentence. It is not itself a question. We're going to talk about this specifically after the midterm exam. So let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about who, what, when, where, why, how questions. So we just saw that to create a yes or no question, you should move one word to the front. But if you ask a who, what, when, where, why, how question, you have to move two words, right? The original sentence is Radha can speak which languages? You have to move the can and the which. So the first step is to move the can to create the question. So this is the same as a yes or no question. Can Radha speak which languages? In order to create a which question, you then have to move the which also. Or in this case, which languages? Which languages can Radha speak? And that's how you form a complete question in English. This process tells us once you move something, the space is still filled. There's a T here. You cannot use this space. Same for the can. There's a T here. You cannot use this space. Right? It's here. Once you move the can over, there's not an empty space where it originally was. You can't fill it. So when you ask a question, remember to move both parts. So if you say what we can do, that's not a question because you have not moved the can. It's what can we do? Which can Radha speak? So same here. They will talk about what? In this case, you only have to move one word, but um, sorry, no, there are two words you have to move. But one word is related to time, and the other word is the thing that you're asking. You have to move both. So, like this. You move the time word to the front, and then you move what you're asking about to the very front. Only when you do both of these is this a structurally and grammatically correct English question. Um, Sometimes, uh, again, depending on what their question is you're asking, right? So, for example, the original sentence here is somebody will walk the dog. So the order of the words has not changed. You simply need to move the question word to the question position, but the order of the words is the same. Um, yeah, we don't need to cover the other stuff. Modifiers? Ah, okay. No, we don't need to cover that either. Relative clauses, 关系代名词, ah ha ha. This is where things start to get a little bit complicated. So a relative clause is connecting two different sentences. So how do you do that? You keep adding layers on top. So it looks like this. The original sentence is here is Hadassah visited somebody, and that somebody is the friend. So you need to move this somebody next to the person that they are. So it looks like this. You move the who here, and it's not a question. It's a relative clause. It's not a question. So the friend who Hasada visited. And again, this is not empty. You don't have to add a new word here. This is not empty. Same thing here. The original sentence is somebody lives in Alberta. But here you're forming a relative clause sentence. Those somebodies are this some people. So you move the who closer to the words that it's talking about. some people who live in Alberta. Passive voice. Yeah, we don't have to talk about that. VP internal subjects. Okay, this is kind of getting crazy. Yeah, okay, so those are the basic ideas. And if you want to review, you can rewatch this video or you can read the chapter yourself. It is on Moodle here. For homework, please do page 1 of your handout. Fill in the blank. These words should be put together in some way to form a grammatically correct but meaningless sentence. The grammar is correct and the meaning is nonsense. There are 7 blanks and there are 8 choices. One of those choices is a blank. The circle with a line across it means empty. It means that you're leaving it blank. So how do you put these words into this diagram to create a grammatical sentence? I'll give you 20 minutes to do this. And you can talk with your classmates. You can search online. And then in 20 minutes, we'll discuss it together. Do you need some help? Okay, first of all, is this a question? If it is a question, what kind of question is it? It has been 10 minutes. Do you need more time? Or like if I give you more time, would it help? No. Okay, let's discuss this together. So it is a question, right? Plus Q. And there's some movement. So it is a question. So that means at least one thing has moved. And we know that if you move two things, you move this one first. So this is something that has moved. Therefore, this is a lowercase t. Then we can look at every sentence has to have a verb. And in your options, you only have one verb. So this is ask. Same thing for prepositions. It tells you this is a preposition and you only have one preposition. So this one is by. Okay, now there are uh, there are two spaces for nouns. This one has to be a noun, and the other noun, if there is another movement, would be here. If there is no other movement, it is here. So the original position is here, right? So if there is uh, if there's a difference, then this noun has to be an object, not a subject, because it started out at the end of the sentence. So we know that there are two nouns, and in your options, you have two nouns. The word it could be subject or object, but the word her as a noun must be an object. The word her could be an adjective, but we don't have adjectives, right? No A. So this her must be a noun. It has to be an object. Therefore, her is either here or here. Depends on if there's movement. So now we come to the key question. Is there movement? Did we have to move another thing? It depends on what kind of question are you asking. If it's a yes or no question, you only move once. If it's a who, what, when, where, why, how question, then you have to move twice. Look at your choices. What kind of question is this? It's a yes or no question, right? You don't see who, what, when, where, why, how, which. So there's only one movement. Her goes here. The question word, the first movement, this is did, and this is empty. Your extra symbol is a lowercase t. So the sentence you get is, did it ask by her? It's nonsense. But the grammar is correct. Yes. Okay, so the word her could either be an adjective or an object. We don't have a space for adjectives, so it has to be an object noun. If it's an object noun, uh, if there is a noun here, then it has to be an object because it comes at the end of the sentence. So we have a space for an object noun, and we have an object noun. We have two noun options, and we have two spaces for a noun. One space is here, and the other space is here if there's no movement, and here if there is movement. So it's two spaces. Therefore, you have two options for nouns. You have two spaces. One space has to be an object. We have an object noun. Therefore, this one has to be her, either here or here. And because it is a yes or no question, there's only one movement, so it is here. Yeah? Okay, great. Other questions? Yes. Can I give more examples? Can I, and this is a T because it's been moved, give, and if you change this to an A, and this would be a noun phrase, more examples. Okay? Or if we follow this structure, can I give, uh, well, no, I can't use the word give because give needs an object and this is a preposition, but the idea is the same. Okay, thank you. Other questions? Okay, so don't worry if you couldn't figure out the answer. I wanted you to practice thinking about the structure of the sentence, to think about how a sentence fits together, regardless of what the sentence actually means. And I hope this is something you will practice trying to feel throughout this course, because there are many similarities between English and Chinese grammar, but not everything is the same. And when we get to something different, you won't be able to depend on your Chinese. You will have to think using the structure of English grammar. For those of you at home, my microphone just fell apart. Okay, so um, next week we are going to talk about, what are we going to talk about? I forgot. Oh, subordinating conjunctions. Great. So um, subordinating conjunctions are basically this structure here. This would be a subordinating conjunction. Or this would be a subordinate clause. And it would begin with a subordinating conjunction. So next week, we're going to be talking about this kind of sentence. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so if you have further questions, I am here to answer them. If you have not yet taken back your final exam from last semester, you can come and do that. If you need to sign in, you can come and sign in. If you need a handout, I have a handout left. Otherwise, I will see you next week.